which I see around the edge of this apple here. One of the techniques I use is to very slightly squint my eyes like this when I'm looking at a form. Now the important thing about that is it stops you seeing too much detail to distract. And when I look at this apple, squinting slightly, I can just define darkest areas, and those are the ones I'm concentrating on in the drawing, which helps me to define, strangely enough, the shape of the object, even though I'm not strictly doing lines. This is called tonal drawing, and it's actually the method that I tend to teach. But that doesn't mean that line drawing is bad. It's just a different way of describing the object in the space, and we can cover that in more detail in further tutorials. The next area of dark I see is on the edge here, and I'm going over that again. Now this technique is called cross-hatching. Some people use it to get darker and darker shading. It's done like this. I'll show you in bigger. Like that, and sometimes again. Another method of doing it with pencil is to use a lot of graphite like that and then rub the area so that you define the edges with more of a soft tonal change. It does help to give volume to the object. I'll do that again here, darkening the shadow again. And to emphasize the darkest area, you can use quite a deep mark like that, very strong. So there's a lot of different ways you can use a pencil to define the object in your drawing. Always come to the last lightest tones at the end. It's a big mistake to try and put in the highlights on an apple, say, right at the beginning, because then you're struggling to find what is the lightest part of that object. I prefer to put the shadows in first and work up to the lightest area, which I would say is here. Again, using rubbing techniques, and sometimes a rubber to take out the final bit of highlight will just give it that bit of emphasis that it needs to bring it to life. And another technique that I find helps when you're drawing a still life, taking an apple again, if you think you can see the edge all the way around an apple, most of that is because of the light and shade. So in this dark area I'm giving a very strong, emphatic mark. But here on the right side of the apple, it's going quite light, almost the same tone as the table it's sitting on. So in that area I sometimes lose the line completely again. Now I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm just rubbing it out just here. And a very clever thing happens there, because your eye then fills in the volume of the form, and it does it for you. That's called a lost line technique, and I like using that a lot with figure drawing, and I'll show you that later on. But it works very well with forms and shapes in your still lifes as well. And follow the same technique for a square object. Look through squinted eyes and see what might be the darkest surface of that object, and where the light is coming from and where the shadow is falling. And I'm seeing this side away from the light is the darkest, whereas the light's striking the top and this side very clearly. And in an object where the basic is a square, you can define it again by tone and by perspective of the way the object is sitting on the surface. And I see the square corner of that box coming towards me here, so I make one mark for the part that's nearest, and then taking my pencil I look at the object using my pencil as a guide and see what angle this side of the box is making. Then I transfer it over here and do it one more time and check, and then just make myself a suggestion. Keeping that point, I then look at this side of the box and I see the perspective of the line of its base going up at an angle. I squint at it, look through my pencil and again mark it in. Don't worry about making marks like this, they can always be changed. Your idea is to get it looking as well sat on the surface as you can, so that it really looks as if it's sitting down on that table. Practice this a lot just with simple objects before you go and try anything more ambitious. Because believe me, to draw a simple box really well is a very good achievement. You should be able to draw anything if you can do that. A simple box, a simple circle, circular object, a simple triangular object. Just practice with those and you're away. You can do anything with them. Then with drawing, always remember to do that, making measurements with your eye and with your pencil or with your thumb, and just learn to see where those angles lie in relation to your base ground. And gradually build up the marks until you see that your object is starting to take shape in front of you. And that's the very early lesson in perspective. Much later on you'll find that very useful when you're going to go out drawing buildings, for example. Thus you will be if you imagine you're in a little street, buildings going away from you into the distance. And that's what we call perspective.